right.
Okay, we're going to share this amazing question that Mesa is asking, who has done both deep dive in Tibetan Buddhism, but now is deep diving in the Yogini tradition from India. And what is your question, my dear?
Yeah, so the way I've experienced desire in my studies of Tibetan Buddhism have been like associating it with poison and darkness, and something that you definitely want to stay away from in your practice. But for me, that doesn't feel very in alignment, at least in my own path. And I'm just wondering how do you practice like more sacred desire, and how is that integrated?
Right. And so did this question kind of start bubbling after we did our full moon sadhana? Was that just this week, last week, something?
Yeah, it was recent. But yeah.
Okay, because in that sadhana, that yogini sadhana, she has all these names. So it was her 100 names, and there's a whole bunch that are kama, right?
Mm-hmm.
So kama means desire in Sanskrit. So coming from the Buddhist vantage point of like, wait a minute, I thought desire was one of the poisons. And then we step into this framework, and it's actually exalted the desire. So I guess I'm reading your question like, how do you explain or make sense of the alignment for you that you feel with desire, even though this teaching is saying it's a poison? Is that right, your question?
Yeah, and where might it be a poison, and where might it be like sacred? And
right. So then we go into the skull cup of both the Tibetan Vajrayana. Okay, first of all, I have to say I'm not an authorized teacher in either tradition. I'm a practitioner, and I this is my experience, and then kind of I'm gonna try to communicate what I've learned from my teachers, and also what's resonating for me as well. So we have the skull cup at the heart of the Dakini, and it's filled with the transformational nectar fluid of blood, and we can have a whole different discussion where the blood is coming from. But so in that Tibetan Buddhist perspective, when we're talking about the Vajrayana, where the yogini is asked to go and experience everything in life. And that is the fuel, that is the transformation. And the more scary, the more taboo, the more grotesque, the more poison, the more go for it. But you don't just do it without the teachings, because the whole deal is if we just approach it from our ordinary mind, we will get burned. It will take us down. That poison will poison us. The whole idea is to approach these poisons or desires as seeing it all as one, and approaching it in that way. And then that poison can fuel our awakening into seeing it as, oh, actually, that poison is actually the same thing as this amazing, perfectly ripe fruit. It's actually. So throwing ourselves over to kama, the yogini line. So in the text, in the sadhana, the liturgy that we were reading, the traditional liturgy, she says at one point, Ma is the one who not only creates and generates the desire. So she's that Shakti that gets you moving. So the desire. So when you're talking about Shiva and Shakti in the ultimate universal dance of union, doing their roles of having these dualities that have the perfect matching coming together. So Shiva, he is just gonna keep chilling out until he has a reason to mobilize, until he has an inspiration, a spark, a desire. And so who is his ultimate spark? Shakti. So Shakti, she's up dancing, she's full of desire and allure and invitation. And so that finally gets Shiva from his Shavasana up and dancing in their Leela together. So without that desire, there's stagnation. Now, there's positive desire that gets the Shakti moving for both the masculine and feminine. But as we were talking about in this sexual sovereignty work, then there's a point where the desire can take us down if we're not careful. So where desire can then be a bondage, where it's blinding and can take us down. So there has to be this constant, with the yogi and the yogini, the Shiva and the Shakti, this constant like intermingling of desire, but from that sovereign place. It's really a fine line, especially in these really deep yogi yogini practices where they're asking you to like test those fires, test those poisons, and can you like, you know, have the mind take you through into your awakening versus take you down, which, you know, I think we all have experienced desire that takes us down. Have you experienced that before?
Definitely.
Yeah. So, let me just realign to your question, your quandary. So in the liturgy, it says, Ma is the one who stimulates and generates that desire through us. She is the one that creates the desires that bond us and limit us and poison us. And she is the one who transforms those bondages into our ultimate freedom. So she's all of it. So from that yogini tradition that we tapped into recently, she's all of it. She's the before, the during, and the after. If you talk about the three faces of Shakti, she's the creation, the sustaining, and the transformation, death. So she's all of it. She's the birth of desire, and the death. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, this is such a great question. We could talk about it, obviously, a really long time.
Yeah.
Does that feel good for the now?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm definitely glad that you're recording it, because then I'll be able to rewatch it over and over.
Yeah, and then I want to just like note what's behind me. So you were saying that in your experience of Tibetan Buddhism, which there are many different kinds, there are many different teachers, there are many different sadhanas. But the approach of Tibetan Buddhism that I love is, so this is not Shiva and Shakti. This is Samantabhadra in blue, Samantabhadri. So it's the same story though. They're two autonomous sovereign beings, but they need each other. They are each other. They even share the same name, Shiva, Shakti, Samantabhadra, Samantabhadri. They're the same. They're non-dual union. And look at that. I mean, that looks like a bunch of desire to me, wouldn't you say? Mm-hmm. So Vajrayana Buddhism, I mean, you can find that throughout Buddhism, those images, but so anyway, that was behind me as we were talking about it.
Beautiful. Thank you.